I've been working a little bit in my vintage themed journal lately, and don't worry, I'll do a flip through later. But I was having a little bit of a dilemma because I'm just gluing in stuff that I have, you know, vintage looking pictures and ephemera and cutouts, and you know, going through here it was just all very brown, as you know, vintage themed things tend to be. Sometimes you can find some cute ephemera type things, printables that already have some color to them. You know, they've got vintage theme and they've got a fairly decent color. But a lot of the times the things that you find are just shades of brown. They're very brown or manila colored or craft colored, and you know, that's all fine and dandy, but I just get tired of brown. I like some color in my vintage stuff. So, you know, there's lots of different ways you can do that. You can add some paint or some sprays or some watercolor or whatever. But I stumbled upon this thing. I didn't invent it. I feel like I invented it because I didn't know about, well, okay, that's not true. I knew about it. I just didn't realize what I had. Let me get specific here. Okay, here's some typically brown printed ephemera pieces that I have colored. And I'll move in so you can kind of get a better look at them. They almost look like they've been colored with pencils or maybe a gouache or some other kind of opaque-ish watercolor or even watered down acrylics. You know, they just have an almost chalky look, but kind of sort of not really. So yeah, whatever you call this look, I don't know, but I like it. And here's how I got it. For some reason, it just really never occurred to me that inside our Posca paint pens is paint. Okay, you know, maybe everyone else realized this. I didn't. Well, of course I realized it. I mean, it's a paint pen. You write with it and then it's paint and it dries and you've painted, right? I get that. But it never really occurred to me that I could paint with the paint in these Posca pens. Because it's, you know, I kind of use them. They are my go-to paint pen. When I want a paint pen, I reach for a Posca. But I don't use them often. I use them when I need to add, you know, when I need to write or draw or add dots or, you know, those types of paint pen things. So more often than not, these are going to dry out before they get used up. Now my black and my white, those use up before they dry out. These, you know, they are just at risk for drying out before they get used up because they're not something I use every day. So this kind of is a way, this kind of kills two birds with one stone, because it's just another way to use your Posca pens, and it's also another way to add little bits of color to, you know, this type of ephemera or really anything. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, let's take some printed ephemera or just some cardstock. I've got this, I think this is graphic 45 scrapbook paper, you know, and then that, and then that, I don't know, yeah, I can't really remember where all these came from, but they are just hopelessly brown. See, this one's got a little spot of red on it, yay, but it's not enough. Okay, and then let's add some color to these. And I'm going to use my Posca paint pens. I've got a little thing of water here, and I've got some brushes of various sizes. And you don't have to use your Posca pens with this. You can use watered down acrylic paints. You can use watercolors. You can use gouache. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can use. You'll get a little bit different look, but I really like this for getting more use out of my Posca pens, taking advantage of some of the cool colors that they have, and just getting this interesting look that I'm getting and that I'm liking. So, alright, zoom in again so you can see what I'm doing. Let's take this one. This one has got kind of a coated thing going on, which is fine. You don't have to saturate your paper with water. You can add a little water if you want, and this is kind of beating up because of the coating, but it doesn't really matter. You can just take your pens and then just add a little of whatever color you're wanting to add. Like, let's take this blue. Now I can scribble this blue and then just take my wet brush and blend it and do like that. Or I can take another color and I can just pick up some of the paint on my brush and add it like that. And I'm not really painting anything in, I'm just kind of smushing and scribbling, and you know, and that's okay. Let's add some there. And just depending on the paper, you know, sometimes it will just totally blend in and just look beautifully watercolored. Sometimes you'll still see the lines of the, you know, your marker lines, and they're kind of hard to blend away. It just depends on the paper, but I just go with whatever I get, and just I'm happy with it. Just be happy with whatever you get. You're eliminating that brown, you know, and adding color to these vintage pieces of printed ephemera or whatever, and you don't have to add a ton of water, so they don't, you know, just buckle up and are hopelessly wrinkled like would likely happen with watercolor. You know, you just need very little water and then they get color, right? Okay, set that aside to dry. Let me do another one. Let's do this one, and I won't add any water at all. I'm just going to use a wet brush, and got my yellow out, so I can just, oops, see it? I can just add some of this, and maybe this green. So, and just make it all blendy. And perhaps this blue, maybe I'll just draw it on there. Like that, and then use my wet brush to blend that paint. And you can just paint with your Posca pens. And that's just a ridiculously simple kind of duh thing, but it seriously never occurred to me to get out a brush and use the paint that's in my Posca pens to paint. Because not only can I do this to get a little bit of control, but I can also just blob and dab and whatever, and then I can just add color to my little vintage ephemeras. And see, it didn't saturate, didn't even soak through to the back of this kind of lightweight cardstock, so it's not gonna wrinkle my paper up like watercolor might. It just is very easy to use, and you just get little splashes of color like this, so that you can use them with your vintage themed things. And it is kind of muted, you know, it's not, I mean, like this is like day glow pink that I put on here, but because the background is this kind of manila color and I'm watering it down, you know, it does what acrylic does. It just dilutes. When you add water to acrylic paint, you know, you're going to lose the vibrancy of the color. And that's what happens here, which makes it perfect for anything that's vintage themed. So yeah, I just really encourage you to give it a try. If you have Posca paint pens or any other water-based acrylic type paint pen. You know, this is not going to work on like an oil-based Sharpie. That's going to be a totally different beast to work with. But any kind of a paint pen that has a water-based paint to it, give it a try. Okay, this has already got some red, so let's see if we can add red without it looking like a crime scene. That's usually kind of difficult. Well, that's not bad. Maybe a little much. Dab some of it off. And then what else? Maybe some orange. This is like bright pumpkin orange. Let's see what happens there. Not too bad. And then this in your face pink. Now you are not working on watercolor paper here, remember. So you don't want to go overboard with the water and with rubbing your brush on it, because it can start to kind of pill up. You know, pill, not peel, pill up. You know what I'm talking about. That needs, I mean, that's nice and everything, but it needs, I think it needs this like dark blue. Is that going to fight with the orange too badly? Let's just find out. See, that might show, the lines might show a little bit, but really that's not a big deal. Because these are supposed to be vintage and worn and, you know, have some city miles on them. So let's just see. Let's just see. That one might need a little something more. I'm going to let it dry and see what it looks like. I've got this blue out, so maybe I will use it right here. And then maybe this different lighter blue over here. A little there. I don't know. Whatever that is. Oh. Yeah, that doesn't really doesn't really work. Okay. There we have just a little bit of color on our vintage doodahs. Like this, and you can, you know, if you want to keep with the vintage brown look, that's okay. Add brown. Maybe we can do like a distressed edge on this using a paint pen instead of like an ink pad. It just takes a tiny little bit. There we go. Maybe a little bit darker here. And then what would make sense to go with that? Maybe this, yeah, maybe this one. And then this lighter orange. You can pick up Posca pens. I usually pick them up like at Jet Pens. You can find some. You can get sets of colors. So just Google and check around for sources of Posca pens. I'll check and see if there's some on Amazon at a good price, and put that in my Amazon recommendations if I find it. And you can certainly use your heat gun to speed up the drying time on these. So let me do that. Let me dry these and then see who needs a little finishing touch here and there, and then we'll take another look. Okay, I did a few more, and I've dried these with my heat gun a little bit. And, you know, there's these, I mean, that's just fine. I like that, just a little bit of color. You can even, you know, color something in on purpose instead of just blobbing if you want. This one needs something. I like that one. I like that one. I want to explain that one. This one's good. Okay, here's what I didn't explain, and I guess I should demonstrate. Okay, I've used colors on here that really don't play well together. I used red and purple and orange, and I think I used this light green and some yellow. Now, if you tried to watercolor with these colors, you might have a little bit of a problem, because even if you dry between colors, you know, as soon as you add water, it's going to kind of reconstitute. And most of these, the yellow will blend with a couple of these. But for the most part, these don't blend well together at all. You know, purple and yellow is just not an attractive mix. So this is how this differs from just watercoloring. If you're thinking, why can't I just watercolor? Well, you can. Okay, you can. But this is a little different, especially in this regard, and I'll show you why. Let me find a piece of printed ephemera, and really something with more of a cardstock base works weller than these pieces of paper. Yeah, it works better. And that's just because these are so absorbent and the paint just saturates all the way through before you get a chance to manipulate it. So let me find, oh, here we go. I do like a close shave. Oh, nothing says I do like a close shave. I get it. Boy, that was... That's where a little punctuation or me paying attention was really necessary. Okay, here we go. Let's use our colors that don't typically play well together. I'm going to start with a little purple and a bigger brush. That's not what I want. There we go. A little purple right here. And I'm going to dry that. Now I'm going to go in with some red. Now, if this red, if I apply it really transparent, you're going to be able to see the purple through it, and then you're going to get that purple-red weirdness. But if I apply it more opaque, then it's not going to be a problem. See, it's not making mud or making that weird purple-red thing like you might see with watercolors. So if you dry in between colors, you know, maybe if you're not sure if they're going to be muddy or not, just dry it in between the colors, and chances are you'll be fine. Let's put some green right on top of that red, which could make lovely mud. Let's just do it on top of the red and the purple. See if it's a little bit see-through. You might get that illusion of mud just because the color's showing through. But it is not blending with the colors underneath. So it's not making a royal mess like it would with watercolors. Okay, let's try that. Now, let's do some orange. Orange likes red. They get along. Orange has nothing kind to say about green. They do not like each other. So we'll use them together anyway. And you can just keep at this really weird, you know, using colors that don't normally blend well together right next to each other or right on top of each other without worrying about making mud, because this is not watercolor, this is acrylic. As long as you know, let it dry. You don't have to like completely dry it, just make sure that it is soaked into the paper all the way before you start adding more stuff. Let's do some more purple and you'll be fine. Set it right here. Let's just go right on top of that orange and go right on top of that green without a care in the world. A little bit over here. So this is just yet one other advantage of painting with your Poscas. You don't have to worry too much about making mud and knowing how colors blend, because when they dry, they don't. They don't blend. That's just all there is to it. And a little yellow just makes everything better, right? Yep. I think that's it. And then there is your little piece of painted, printed, vintage themed ephemera. Okay, now how and where to use these? Well, okay, it's just kind of up to you. Use them how you want, right? Let me show you how I am playing. Oh wait, I said I was going to fix this one. Okay, let me fix it, because see, it had the blue right here that I put straight onto the paper and it left a mark. Blues and purples tend to do that a lot. I don't know what it is. It's just something about the paint that's in there. They leave marks behind. So let me see, now that it's dry, if I can go in and sort of blend that away with more of the same color. Maybe. Still kind of showing through, huh? Okay. Maybe it needs some of this lighter blue, which normally doesn't leave paper marks. Oh, there we go. And you will, you know, depending on how heavy-handed you are with your paint, you're going to lose some of the details, the print and the pattern of your ephemera piece, which I don't mind, because that just adds to the vintage look even more, or I think it does anyway. Let's do that. Dry. And then go back in with some of this orange. Orange and blue, you know, generally don't like each other. They're like the sharks and the jets. And they just are looking for an excuse to rumble. I hope somebody out there is my age and actually gets that reference. Alright, maybe blue, or not blue, yellow. wanted, but it's the one I grabbed, so that's okay. Oh, okay, now see, I think that's pretty now. We've kind of covered up the lines that were left by that dark blue marker, but not in a way that's too obvious. And I think that's really pretty. So there you have it, painting with Posca paint pens, because there's paint in there, people. Yeah, I didn't know. I knew, but I didn't. Hope you understand that. Okay, now let me show you my vintage themed journal I've been working on, and kind of what I have in mind for it, because it needs some help, really. All right, let's zoom out. And this started out as one of those 7 Gypsies, the new architectures journals, which are just lovely, very, very beautiful vintage journals. This one in particular, this is called the Spiral Book, 80 pages. That's a little deceiving. It's actually 40 pages, 40 pieces of paper, but it has 80 surfaces that you can art on. So it's not 80 actual pages of heavy-duty paper. I found that this is not so much heavy-duty paper, or maybe it is heavy-duty paper, but it's not a stock that takes wet media very well. I think this would be better for dry media or damp media, but not wet. Because, you know, I'm heavy-handed with my paint and my glue, and I don't mind the buckling. The pages do buckle. That's not really my issue with this, but this is. Lots of the pages have just pulled out because this is text weight paper that the pages are made out of, and they just don't hold up well to a lot of wet media on them. So several of them have pulled out, and I'm thinking of ways to, I'm going to rebind it. I'm just going to take the whole thing apart and rebind it, and I've got an idea for that I'll have to show you as I continue to flesh it out. But this is what I've done. It comes with this little tag on it. I just glued it to the cover because I am going to still use the covers, I think. And then the pages I have just abused in every possible way with paint and glue. I've used my Posca pens directly on the pages, which works really well, especially if pages like this that are heavily collaged, or glue book pages that have got stuff all over it. Those Posca pens just blend beautifully on here. You just scribble them on, add a little water, and it's like watercoloring with acrylic paints, or just applying watery acrylics, but in a very neat and easy way. You can do this on the couch with a water brush, and you can't often paint on the couch. But this you can, because it's like tidy painting. It's just not as messy as painting with actual, your actual bottles or tubes of acrylics. So this one, I love this one. I've used lots of napkins in here because, I wanted a kind of a vintage theme, but not like die-hard vintage. But I wanted color. And in some situations, not much color, but I certainly do like to have that option. Some of the pages are not finished. They just have a few things glued down, and then maybe some little bit of paint here and there. And these are just, it's just, fun finding my vintage stuff. I've got tons and tons of vintage images, printouts, printed ephemera, clip art things that I've collected, and they just sit there and continue to collect. So this is a great way to use them up in a way that you can still enjoy, because I can flip through this and enjoy them. I can make a color copy of one of the pages and use it, so I don't worry about, oh no, I had one of these images and I glued it down and I forgot to make a copy of it. I forgot to scan it before I did it. No big deal. I can, if I'm just, heartbroken over that, I can still make a copy of this whole page and use that image. So I don't freak out about that anymore, about using my only one and it'll be gone forever, because I know that I'm going to collect something else. And it may not be that same exact image, but it's going to be awesome. And so I've just traded one image for another, right? So these are some of the pages. There's labels. This was a page out of an old high school yearbook, or maybe college yearbook. I can't remember, but it's from like the 30s or 40s. There's some stuff in here you might recognize from the Graphics Fairy. There's book pages. There's just weird stuff that I found and printed out. That's a printout of an old pattern. And, you know, I've just skipped around, sometimes no rhyme or reason, just stuck stuff down. And some of the pages, I look at them and I think, ooh, they're finished. I like it exactly like it is. I don't want to add a thing. But for the most part, you know, a lot of them, I'd like to add a little something here and there. I've got that option. When I'm in the mood, I come back, I revisit it, I add what I want, and use up some of the stuff that I just continue to collect. See, this is just basically, I had the background, I glued this, I glued this, I glued that. And, you know, it needs color, it needs something else, and I don't feel compelled to just rush in and finish it. I'll just do it when I feel inspired, or when I find, you know, just the right little something to go there. So this is my vintage themed yet colorful in spots journal book, artist book, journal glue book, whatever. So I think I'm gonna add, these are not my favorite either, they just irritate me. I think I'm gonna add some more of my colorful things that I just did. And I've gotten some new napkins and some Happy Mail, so I'll see what will fit in there and just continue to work on this. And I'll film a little bit as I work, and then we are going to rebind this guy. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you'll try painting with your Posca pens, if you have some, or your, you know, water-based paint pen marker deals, and see if you like that. And that's all. The end.